Hello, Facebook. My name is Saran Cade. I'm serving as Secretary of Labor for the state of Delaware. I'm here at the Department of Labor in Wilmington right now in a really big room with only 2 people in it as we practice social distancing. And I hope you all are doing the same. We've got our hand sanitizer and our hand wipes and all of those other things as we try to make sure that we keep the Department of Labor clean and safe for our staff who are processing an historic number of claims as a result of decisions that have been made to protect our citizens from COVID-19. So, as I just mentioned, we are in a historic time. The state of Delaware last year, just to give you some context, received about 37,000 unemployment claims in 1 year. Over the last 3 weeks during this crisis, the agency has received over 50,000 claims. This is an extreme high point that we have not seen in years past, and of course it's consistent around the country. And so departments of labor and unemployment offices around our nation are trying to grapple with this unique situation that we find ourselves in. But what's most important, what's most concerning, are the needs of workers who have found themselves unemployed as no fault of their own, who still have bills to pay and still have responsibilities to their families and their communities. And so numerous questions have come through the department during these last 3 weeks in various different formats. On a typical day, we could receive anywhere from 50 to 75,000 phone calls. And since this situation started, we've received over 17,000 emails to our UI claims email address from citizens who again have found themselves in extremely trying situations. Our staff at the Department of Labor, while in this situation and in this scenario, is also, as I said, practicing our own social distancing. We're triaging and assisting staff who have come in contact with individuals who have come down with COVID-19. We're also ensuring that high-risk individuals within our agency are able to quarantine. During this time period, it presents an incredible list of challenges associated with having individuals work from home while still getting access to our unemployment system. All of these things happening at once has caused for a few troublesome points for a lot of individuals who are attempting to file for claims. And what we're here to tell you is that our agency is working around the clock to make sure that we can get to each and every one of your claims to make sure that you receive the benefits that you rightfully deserve. During this time, as I said, we've received very high call volume, so individuals who have tried to call into the Department of Labor have been kicked out of the call system. Essentially, this is because this crisis happened so quickly that we did not have the time to set up and expand our intake call system to allow for the thousands of people who were calling in to at least remain on hold. And that caused a lot of frustration. Individuals who have filed their claims online or over the phone in our automated system, over 65% of those individuals have received their benefits within a week and have had no issues. The problem are the individuals, the 35%, who have found themselves in situations where they've had troubleshooting scenarios, such as lost pins or conflict of information between their employer or our database and what they've reported, or simple mistakes like leaving out a social security number, or in some cases making a mistake on an address, or a multitude of other reasons, and a big one being applying for benefits where they do not qualify because the federal law has not completely been implemented yet. So we're here to try to address a good amount of your questions while giving you some idea as to how quickly it will take for some of you who are having problems to actually be able to apply for benefits and receive your first benefit check. Individuals and people have reached out to the Department of Labor to ask questions. They've come through email, and we've had the ability to take some of those questions and try to get to the meat of what the major questions have been, so that we can answer those directly rather than everyone waiting for a response to their email. So we're going to start doing that right now. We're also going to be taking some questions that come in through Facebook. So make sure that you get your questions in. But I just want to start by saying that our agency is 100% committed to making sure that Delawareans receive the benefits that they deserve during this crisis. And if you could please bear with us if you're having difficulty, we will get to you, and we will be able to direct benefits to you if you're able to qualify. And we're moving very quickly. I want to give you some insight as to how we're moving and what we're doing, just so that you don't get the idea that this is just lip service. Our agency, our division of unemployment, started with about 100 employees when this first occurred, and we processed an average of about 530 claims a week with that staff. Now, that complete staff isn't responsible for processing claims. That part of that staff is responsible for collecting unemployment taxes and providing other unemployment services to Delaware workers. But a smaller contingent, probably 20% of that contingent, was responsible for processing claims that come into our system. When this crisis occurred, we went from 530 claims to the first week. We had 10,700 claims. The next week we had 20,000 new claims. And week after that, we've nearly gotten to 20,000 once again. So what we've done is we've partnered with staffing agencies to hire new staff, train them. As many of you are realizing now, unemployment can be a complex situation, so we can't necessarily just throw people into call centers to answer your questions. So we train them and we bring them into the system to respond to emails and your phone calls and things like that. And we're hiring staff weekly through our staffing agencies and training them to get them on the phones and the emails. Many of you have remarked over the last few days as we begin to implement some of these new strategies in order to expand our capacity that you are receiving emails and you are getting through. So that is a positive step forward. We've been able to peel back our emails that we've received and respond to more than 1,000 a day since we have received this or been able to build our capacity personnel-wise. Also, we will be working with call center so that the 65, sometimes the 70,000 phone calls that come in, we can ensure that individuals who need to actually speak to a person have the ability to do that. And that is a system that we will be able to fully stand up in a few days, in the coming weeks. So there is light at the end of what seems like an endless or undetermined tunnel, but I assure you that we're moving at light speed in order to make sure that we can meet your needs and demands. So I'm going to start with some questions that have come through, which is I know what everybody has been probably waiting for as I've gone on to give you some context as to where we are and where we see ourselves going. So one of the big questions that we've received, which I'll start, which is a great segue to what we've just talked about, is it's been weeks and I haven't heard back from anyone. This is a consistent question, and again, provided some context as to how we're trying to respond and triage. I want to be clear that people who have filed their claims and done so correctly or are eligible for unemployment benefits typically do not have a need to talk to anybody. They apply online or they apply on the automated phone system. The process goes pretty smoothly. They receive a notification as to how much they should qualify for, they will qualify for in benefits, which is based on their quarterly earnings, their past quarterly earnings. And we provide them that information. They get an opportunity to appeal, and if they do not, then they're responsible for going into our system every Sunday and reporting their earnings. And once they're able to do that and report their earnings, we have to do weekly. we process their unemployment benefit within the next 24 to 48 hours after that. So as you can imagine, if you apply for benefits on Wednesday and you go through the process pretty smoothly, you should start, depending on how you requested your payment, whether it be direct deposit or a check, you should receive your direct deposits by around Wednesday, and you should start receiving your physical checks by Thursday or Friday at some point. So we're proud of the fact that we've been able to process that many claims. However, for individuals who have filed their claim and a mistake has occurred, and they have to troubleshoot, they find themselves in a position where they have to actually talk to someone. For many of you who have spoken with someone, you may have been asked to turn over your Social Security number and your photo of your driver's license, and you've been asked to send that to UI Claims. The staff that I just told you that we were hiring weekly, those staff are responsible for responding to your email claims on a pretty regular basis. And again, as we start building out our call center functions and expanding our capacity, we'll be able to get through those claims pretty quickly. And barring any other problems with your account, once we're able to get to that email and implement and put that information into the system, once we're able to do that, you would receive your benefit in a few days. So again, bear with us. We're going to get to you as soon as we possibly can. But if you have sent an email in, we will get to it. There's no need to send 10 or 15 or 20. There's not someone who we're going to get to the first email that you receive as soon as we can. So sending 10 or 15 isn't going to start pinging in somebody's box and they're going to miraculously respond. So I assure you, if you have sent one email, that is enough. The more that you send, the more we clog up our system and the harder it is to respond to your claim and everybody else's. What is the status of the $600 stimulus amount that is, and is it a one-time payment? So for folks who may not be aware, the United States Congress passed a law or a couple of new laws called the CARES Act, which is a coronavirus relief act, and it was signed by the president a couple of weeks ago. And the law provides $600 to every individual who will qualify for benefits under the state's unemployment system, and it provides that benefit on top of their weekly benefit amount. It's not a one-time payment or benefit, it is a weekly benefit. So if you qualify for the top benefit amount of $400, then you would be receiving $1,000 weekly once we were able to implement this program, which I'm happy to announce that we were able to implement a part of this program early this week. Folks should have started receiving their additional $600 payment on top of their whatever they were receiving for Delaware's weekly benefit amount. So we are happy about that and thankful to the Congress and our federal delegation for providing that benefit to workers who have a great need right now. So that does not apply, however, to independent contractors and people who work for churches and self-employed individuals. While the Coronavirus Relief Act does provide language that would allow for benefits for these workers, unfortunately, Congress, or the law that was passed by Congress, regulations have not been developed so that states can implement this law, which is very complex. I want to be clear about that, and I don't want to give anybody any false sense of that this is something that is going to be easy to implement for independent contractors and self-employed people. This population of workers do not pay into unemployment. If you look at unemployment like an insurance program, which it is, which is why we call it unemployment insurance, in any insurance program, if you pay in, you receive benefits out when mistakes happen or accidents occur. So as far easy, our system is designed for workers to receive who their employers pay unemployment benefits on their behalf to the unemployment trust fund. So in Delaware, unlike some other surrounding states, employers pay the full amount for a worker's unemployment benefits. The worker doesn't provide or pay any unemployment taxes in Delaware, which is different than places like New Jersey, which, as a result, they have a much higher unemployment weekly benefit amount than we do in Delaware. So in Delaware, the worker doesn't pay anything, the employer pays everything. Nobody pays for self-employed individuals or independent contractors or some nonprofits. Now, nonprofit organizations, they don't pay unemployment tax quarterly on the front end. What those organizations do is they pay an unemployment tax on the back end. So if they lay someone off, then they would have to pay dollar for dollar to the unemployment office in order to compensate for whatever benefits we paid out to the employee that they laid off. The only that doesn't qualify for churches, folks who work for schools or parochial schools. Those individuals are in the same pool as independent contractors and self-employed workers, and we just have to wait until the federal government provides us with more guidance. Now, they started providing us some guidance earlier this week. It's not enough for states to implement this law fully to satisfy the needs of those workers, but once that is done, states are going to have to redesign our unemployment system temporarily in order to accommodate these workers, because again, with a traditional employee, their employer reports to us quarterly what they're paying you in wages. We don't have that ability or luxury with self-employed individuals or workers. So in order to ensure that we're not paying out benefits to individuals who may not qualify or have not paid to the fund, the system is not designed to accommodate individuals who the fund is not being contributed to on their behalf. So that just gives you a little bit of background. It does not alleviate the need of these workers to collect benefits, but it just gives you some insight as to what is taking so long. Let's see. I'm going to look at Kenny and see if he's got any other questions coming across.
This is a question about definition of gig workers, 1099, and independent contractors.
Yeah, so definition of an independent worker or a gig worker. So I say things like traditional employee. And these are typically people who, when they come to take a job, they sign a W-4, and an employer has a responsibility of withholding Social Security, taxes, Medicare taxes, payroll taxes, and unemployment insurance tax for those workers. Independent contractors are not tethered to an employee. Of course, self-employed individuals are not as well, or independent contractors aren't tethered to an employer, rather. So no one is providing benefits on their behalf. They have to pay and withhold their own taxes. They have to contribute into their own retirement savings, and they, with that, they experience other flexibility, or should experience other flexibilities that a traditional employee does not or would not. So typically, if you're an independent contractor, you would sign W-9, or you would sign a 1099, which is traditionally used. Sometimes employers give workers 1099s and make them independent contractors when they traditionally should be an employee, and we've stressed in the past that this is not effective, and we've stressed in the past that this is worker misclassification, and a worker who should be a traditional employee, who's named as an independent contractor without being aware of all of the impact of that decision when it comes to their tax liability, and when it comes to situations like this where a safety net is not necessarily in place for them. We have worked time in and time out in various industries to make sure that workers who sign 1099s and sign up as independent contractors are aware of their rights, are aware of what misclassification is, and we try to stress to employers to use a specific system to determine whether or not an employee should be deemed a traditional worker or employee, or whether or not they can be named as an independent contractor. There are some independent contractors who want to do that, and they enjoy that flexibility. A lot of these are what we call gig workers, and these are people who drive for Uber and Lyft, and these are individuals who provide other services to organizations and businesses, and they like the flexibility of being able to come and go as they please and set their own hours and use their own technology and equipment and reap all the benefits of the work that they do. And they should have the ability to do that. And so however, the give to that, what you give up with that freedom and flexibility, is a safety net that is established and has been established by the 100+ years of labor laws. There is currently nationally a revolution going on right now to try to provide these workers with more benefits. However, that has not manifested itself completely yet, and we've come into a time where that is completely prevalent and shown today as we deal with this crisis, and individuals who have signed up as independent contractors who don't have that safety net in place for them during this crisis. So this is a far bigger conversation than just where we're at right now, but we are working through it, and we're trying to get you the support that you need. Another question that we have here is a rumor, which, I like to try to squash rumors because they typically make their way around the world far faster than the truth does. There was a rumor going around that there was a glitch in the UI system and all direct deposit bank information was lost. That is not true. That never happened. Don't know where that came from, but whoever put that out there apparently has a pretty good following. So we got a bunch of questions coming in about it, but I can assure you that did not occur. There may be individuals who put in the wrong banking information in our system. So we had a problem providing them a benefit, but there's no one whose bank information, direct deposit information, was lost. There may be people who have provided their direct deposit information to the email address that we mentioned, who have not received a response yet. But that does not mean that we have lost that information. We are just getting through it and trying to get to those emails as quickly as we can. So I just want everybody to be aware that our system has not been breached at all. So you can rest easy with regard to that. Another person asked, is there back pay for all of these weeks that I have not been contacted about my issue? So if you qualify for benefits during that time period, say you received notification that your benefits were just being held, that you qualify for benefits, but they were just being held because you failed your security check on the front end. What some people don't know is when you log into our system, we have a LexisNexis security check, which requires you to put information in that only you would have or know, like, if you have an auto loan, what bank is it through, or if you have a mortgage, who's your mortgage company, and it's multiple choice questions that are to verify that you are who you say you are. And if you fail those questions, then even if you qualify for benefits, we will hold those benefits until you can verify that you are who you say you are. And we do that as a security method. I know it may seem cumbersome, but we want to make sure that even in the midst of this crisis, that fraudsters and people who will try to take advantage of this situation don't have the ability to start drawing down benefits that workers who deserve them and worked hard for them should receive. So I understand that's a cumbersome system. However, it is completely necessary, especially during these times. So if you qualify for benefits, but unfortunately we had to hold them for whatever reasons, misinformation, information not matching, whatever reason that may be, once we rectify the situation, you will receive benefits from that time period that you applied for those benefits and that your benefits were held. However, the $600 added benefit, you would not qualify for that until around April 1st, April 4th or April 5th. So any back wages that would have to be paid for April 4th would only include your state benefit. Any delayed or withheld benefits that would start after or that would include time after April 4th, you would receive back pay that would include the full $600 benefit. So that's been a question that we've received. Hopefully I explained it correctly. If not, I'm sure you'll be blowing up Facebook to alert Kenny that you need more information. Is there anything else that's coming in?
Yeah, are there extensions available for those who have previously exhausted a claim?
That's a really good question. So the CARES Act, the question was, are there benefits that are available for people who have exhausted their unemployment benefits? So in unemployment, the state of Delaware, you are allowed to be on unemployment for a total of 26 weeks. That time does not need to be consecutive. So if you started working at another job and you came off of unemployment and then you lost that job and had to come back, you would still be on the same claim collecting benefits within that 6-week period. There are people who have unfortunately found themselves in a position where their benefits expired or are about to expire in the midst of this crisis, and they can't get back to work because of the mandated state of emergency shutdowns. So these workers, the federal government has provided a 13-week extension for unemployment for these workers, and we're in the process of implementing that 13-week extension now. But these workers under the new federal law will qualify for the 13-week extension of benefits. So if your unemployment has expired and you have a question as to whether or not you would qualify for benefits again, I know there's been a backlog of emails, but please send us an email. I can't promise you that we'll get back to it, that we'll be able to get to it in the next few hours or anything along those lines, but I can assure you that we will get back to it or get to it. What else are you getting over there, Kenny?
You went over sales care. Talk about the phones, folks. Really, I don't think they heard. People got on late.
Yeah.
The issues that we're having with the phones and what we may be doing to rectify it.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So again, for the question is, I could talk a little bit more about the phones because people are having extreme difficulty getting on the phones, and so I want to give some context as to what has gone into our telephone capacity, our our capacity to answer phone calls rather. Again, we're getting about 65 to 75,000 calls some days. Of course, not 65 to 75,000 people, but you may have someone who called 10 or 20 times. When this crisis first hit us, again, was not something that workers or state agencies had the ability to plan for years in advance. So the system that Delaware had capped the number of people who could call into our system and be on hold. It capped that number. And so what happened was, once you hit that cap, everyone who called in and wanted to talk to someone, they got kicked out of the system and were not able to call in. They received busy signals or other things. So that is what occurred when this crisis first hit. This was something that's been experienced all over the country. Much larger states, of course, who have far greater capacity than we do, were swamped. We have calls with labor departments all around the country. States like Texas receiving 1.7 million calls in a day, and our unemployment system, which is not state funded, which is federally funded, which is important to note, are not built to the capacity to deal with that level of intake that quickly. Typically, for unemployment services, if there is a change in the economy, which is looking like we're approaching recession, it's rarely ever something that hits in 24 hours. It's typically something that we have time to plan for and for the work through the federal system to receive more funding in order to accommodate the increase or the expected increase in call volume and claim volume. In this scenario, there was no time. There was no space where we could depend on federal funding to come in to provide the ability to expand for labor departments around the country. So we had kind of a very unique marriage of some really bad timing and a really bad situation, which, and on top of that, because of social distancing, we had to shut down our offices to public, direct public access in order to prevent Delawareans, thousands of Delawareans who were about to apply for benefits, for congregating in one of our only 3 offices statewide that are processing unemployment claims. Wanted to make sure that 1, we protected Delawareans and citizens, and 2, that we protected our very small at the time staff, where if those individuals start getting sick or showing symptoms and have to be quarantined, not only is that a tragic human problem, but it is also an operational problem, because then we lose the ability to respond to the historically high claims. So that was kind of the space that we were in. We have executed an agreement with the new technology firm, along with the state, that will allow us to add more individuals onto that system and remove that cap, so that we can at least have the thousands of folks who are calling in be on hold, rather than being kicked out of the system if you need to talk to someone. A lot of the calls that we have received, I have to be clear, a lot of the calls that we have received have not been about individual claims, but have been from individuals who are calling just to get information about how unemployment works and to get information about what's going on and with the federal law and things like that. That's a huge number of the people who have been calling in. We urge you to look at our FAQs, which we update repeatedly so that you get answers to your question, so that if you don't need to call the office, you don't have to, so that we can reserve that space for people who are troubleshooting their claims and need answers to those questions. But a large percentage of people who are calling in just because they want to tell somebody their scenario to see whether or not they may qualify for benefits. And I am urging you to apply online or apply through the automated system, or to look at our FAQs, which are on our website, or you can text to 555-888. You can text UIFACTS, UIFACTS, to 555-888, and you will receive the most up-to-date FAQs that we have, which generally answer more than 60% of the questions that we typically get in the call-ins. And we want to make sure that we reserve that space or that capacity for people who are really troubleshooting their claims, so that we're not clogging up the system to triage some of those other questions that are coming in related to hypotheticals, especially from individuals who have not filed their claims yet. So we urge you to file your claim. You'll get a response to your claim file within a week, as majority of people do, unless there's a problem with how you fill out the application. So we urge you to file. You'll probably get a response to your hypothetical question much quicker by filing your claim than you ever will by calling just to ask someone whether or not you qualify.
We're updating the FAQs today as well to talk more about the CARES Act and gig workers. There's a question about overpayments.
Yeah. Oh, this is a really good question. There's a question that came in about overpayments. For people who are not aware, an overpayment situation occurs when the Department of Unemployment pays benefits to a worker based on the weekly earnings that they reported or they're responsible for reporting weekly. Sometimes what happens with overpayments are that individuals start a new job, and in some cases they may not alert the Department of Labor that they started a new job, and or the timing of when they started the new job conflicts with the timing that they would need to report their earnings or to cut off their unemployment altogether. And what some people don't know is that you can hide a lot of things from the Department of Labor, but wages aren't one of them because your employer is responsible for turning over information as to how much they paid you in a given quarter or or quarterly. And so what happens is that when we go back and reconcile our systems, and when we realize that we were paying someone benefits during a time period that an employer was also paying them, that person has to pay back the Department of Labor, and that is called an overpayment. Sometimes it's a mistake, and it's an honest mistake, especially as people transition into new jobs and things like that. And sometimes it is fraud, and it is premeditated fraud where people are just trying to collect as much income as they possibly can. And I understand people in trying times may resort to things like that, but unfortunately, we have to collect those dollars back. What people are experiencing now, that they may have had an overpayment from 2015 or some bygone time ago that they may not even remember, when the Department of Labor sends those notifications that we have information that, or we believe that you have an overpayment owed to the Department of Labor in X amount, people have the opportunity to appeal that decision. They have an opportunity to pay that debt off or get into a payment plan agreement to pay that debt off. And sometimes people just don't, because they figure this will never hurt me. I'll never be on unemployment again, and I just won't pay it. However, now that people have unexpectedly ended up on unemployment as a result of this crisis, the way that our system is operating, people who are applying benefits who may qualify for even a $4 amount, it is being garnished and withheld in order to pay back their overpayment debt. In some cases, that debt can be $2,000, $3,000 or more dollars. And so those individuals are not receiving benefits currently. And the question is, are we going to forgive that in this trying time in order to make sure that people receive benefits? And unfortunately, the answer is no. Unfortunately, we will not be able to provide or relax that requirement that would garnish your wages. Is an unfortunate situation, and I do not envy anyone who finds themselves in it. And I am completely sympathetic about the situation that people are in. But unfortunately, we do not have the ability, based on our federal guidelines, as well as based on current best practices, to provide individuals who owe payments to unemployment with with relaxing those rules. So I know that may not be a popular decision for individuals who are experiencing overpayments, and I don't have a full number of the amount of people that actually impacts. There's information that exists with DHSS about other social service opportunities, and I urge people who may find themselves in that situation where they don't qualify for unemployment benefits to explore those other resources. But I don't have positive news for people who are in that situation.
There's a question about work search requirements with employers not being open. How do I satisfy that?
So currently, we're not penalizing anybody for the work search question. There was a hiccup in our system the first week we started, or first or second week that we started providing expanded benefits, where we eliminated the work search requirement, where people who checked off that they did not look for work that week received a notification in the mail that said that your benefits may be held because you didn't check your work search. That was an automated mail delivery. It happened. We changed the rules far quicker than we could change the system, with a desire to try to meet the needs of workers as quickly as we could. We did not deny anybody benefits because of how they answered the question. It's just the automated letter that goes out went out to everyone. If your benefits so there are a lot of people who received that letter and still receive benefits, and there are a lot of people who received that letter and they did not receive their benefits, but I can assure you that they didn't receive them not because of the work search, but because something else occurred or there was another problem in the system as they were applying. So that's a really good question. But again, we've eliminated the work search requirements. You'll still see the question on the site, but we urge you to continue to work with the Department of Labor's Employment and Training Unit, which you get information for when you apply for benefits, so that you can get as much information as you can about not only businesses who will be hiring when this crisis is over, but also businesses who are hiring currently. If you would like to be in a profession where you'll be an essential employee, there are a lot of essential employers who are hiring right now and looking for workers. So we urge you, even though it's not a mandate, we urge you to engage with employment and training if you have those needs.
I received a confirmation number. How do I know my claim has been approved?
So you'll know that you'll receive a notification in the mail that your claim was approved. You'll receive a letter outlining what your weekly benefit will be. It's a confusing looking paper sheet, a response, I know. At the bottom of it, it's a chart that shows you what your earnings will be, what your WBA, which stands for weekly benefit amount, which is how much you're going to receive weekly, what that will be. You'll receive that notification. And barring receiving a second notification that there was a problem, that there's a hold, you'll just receive your payment or your weekly benefit check in the form in which you requested it. So once you apply online, you'll receive that letter in the mail. It won't be an email or anything along those lines, not yet, but you'll receive a letter in the mail. So make sure that the mailing address that you use is the actual address where we can reach you at, and not a secondary address or anything along those lines. We still send this notification via mail for you to receive. That notification, again, will be your weekly benefit notification, which will let you know how much you qualify, if you qualify for anything. And shortly after that, it gives you directions as to how to report your earnings at the end of the week. And once you report your earnings at the end of the week, the only notification that you'll receive is the check in the mail or the check or the disbursement to your bank account. Going through some of the questions right now. Let me see if I have some more on here. So one of the questions that and I have to repeat in case people came on late, is regarding independent contractors, self-employed workers, and people who work for nonprofit church-related organizations. I want to assure you that we are working around the clock. Please do not apply for benefits yet if you are in that category. There are independent contractors applying for benefits because, understandably so, they saw on television or they saw on heard on the radio that the federal government and the president signed a law allowing for independent contractors to apply for unemployment and self-employed individuals to apply for unemployment benefits. That has not been implemented yet. So we'd ask that you not apply for benefits. It, again, jams up our system. There's no need in calling us yet. We don't know when that will be able to be implemented. We're all currently, states around the country are waiting on the federal government. We've received initial guidance, which gives us some idea as to the time period that we may be looking at. So there's some states who may be giving information on an estimate of what time period they think they'll be able to start implementing the program. We don't know yet, so we don't want to give any false hope as to what day. We would just say that as soon as we are able to implement the program, we're going to update our FAQs. So stay connected with our frequently asked questions. Again, you can text UIFACTS, UIFACTS to 555-888, and you will receive the most up-to-date. We update it as often as we get new information, and we update it as often as new questions start registering as being major questions, and we update that regularly. So, from time to time, you can just text UIFACTS to 555-888, and you'll receive a text update with a link that will direct you to our most up-to-date FAQs, so you can ask those questions so we can, again, relieve strain on the call system to allow people who need to escalate questions and concerns with the claims that they've already filed, they can be escalated to the top of the pile.
We also send out a weekly email with all the updated information and links to all of the new FAQs and guidelines when it comes to unemployment benefits and insurance. We're also going to go through the questions in the chat and pass them off to our folks to be able to address the folks that can't get their direct question answered. And finally, I know there are dedicated teams being created strictly for email. There was a question specific.
Can they hear you?
I don't know. There's a dedicated team being put together. Actually, it's already together, only answering email.
Right.
They cleared so far about 8,000 emails.
Great.
And they're a few days behind.
Okay. So I don't know if everybody was able to hear Kenny. I'm going to assume that they may not have been, or they may have. I don't know. But there's some good news on the horizon as we're able to get through as many of these emails as we possibly can. The unit that we are standing up has been able to respond to over 8,000 emails, I think we just said, over the past few days in order to get responses to your questions. For questions that came through Facebook Live where we were not able to answer them, as long as they're not about your specific UI claim maybe, our team is going to take those and respond to them as well to make sure that we can get you as much information as we possibly can. So if we didn't hit on a topic that is you're really interested in hearing something about, we will be getting back to these email response, these Facebook comments in an efficient and hopefully a quick manner.
This next week as well.
And we'll be doing this next week as well, which I'm kind of just finding out, but I'm completely okay with. But we'll be doing this next week as well. We'll also be doing on Rick Jensen's show. We'll have Daryl Scott, who's our director of unemployment, on Rick Jensen's show, answering questions that also come into our system, just in an effort to communicate as much as we can in order to reduce the strain on our call systems and our email systems. Very similar to the work that our governor and governors are doing around the country, though it's more life and death when it comes to flattening the curve in order to relieve strain on our hospital system. State governments and agencies around the country are doing the same when it comes to our call systems and trying to flatten the curve of call volume by getting communication and information out to you in various different means, and maybe memes too, in order to make sure that we're communicating effectively to reduce the need of calling into the system and sending in emails. So please stay tuned to the Department of Labor's social media accounts, our website, for those who are following us right now at our website. Please stay connected with us so that we can continue to provide this information to you in an orderly and an efficient and effective manner. And if you are not calling because of your claim, or you're just calling to get some answers, first I ask you again, check out the FAQs, take a look at the website, and if your question may be able to be answered there, and if not, again, we're expanding our capacity and our to answer and respond to emails, and we will get to you as soon as we possibly can. So unless there are any other questions, we're going to sign off for right now. Again, I just really want to thank everybody for joining us and for giving us some time to address some of your questions. I recognize that we may not have been able to hit everybody's question, but I think we provided some insight as to how you can get those questions answered. Again, we'll be responding to comments on Facebook. We'll be updating our FAQs regularly, or we are updating our FAQs regularly. Again, have to reiterate the text message option of texting UIFACTS, UIFACTS to 555-888 in order to receive our most up-to-date FAQs to, again, reduce unnecessary calls, provide you the information in a quick and timely and efficient manner, and make sure that we can elevate the people who are calling regarding their claims who need benefits to the top of the heap. So I'd like to thank you again for joining us. Please stay safe, keep your distance, use your hand sanitizers and your masks when you're in public. Again, the governor provided new guidance and CDC guidance that we should all be, when we're in public places where we can't practice social distancing, we should all be using cloth masks or any other device to protect individuals who are around us from contracting the virus. As we all know, you don't have to be showing symptoms to be contagious. So let's be safe so that we can get through this crisis and emergency and we can get back to work. Thank you, guys.